Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In continuity with the previous lectures regarding detailed features of internal structure of the midbrain, we will discuss in today's lecture some of the important internal structures, for example, medial longitudinal fasciculus, trochlear nucleus, red nucleus, etc. Now, first we will discuss the medial longitudinal fasciculus. It is also known as medial longitudinal bundle. Now, what is a medial longitudinal bundle? It is a compact bundle of nerve fibers. Compact bundle of nerve fibers. Now, which fibers? Ascending fibers. Descending fibers. And intersegmental fibers. Now you know suppose this is a part of the brainstem or spinal cord. The ascending fibers ascend. The descending fibers descend. Now we divide the spinal cord into segments, and we can also divide the brainstem into segments. So there are fibers. For example, these are segments. So there are fibers which interconnect different segments. Short fibers interconnecting adjacent segments. Such type of fibers are known as the intersegmental fibers. Now, what is the location of medial longitudinal bundle? It is in the tegment of the midbrain. Suppose this is a section through the midbrain. Traversed by cerebral aqueduct, in front crus cerebri, and behind the crus cerebri substantia nigra. And you know the cerebral aqueduct is surrounded by central gray matter known as the periaqueductal gray matter. Now this longitudinal, medial longitudinal fasciculus is located in the tegmentum anterolateral to the periaqueductal central gray matter. medial longitudinal fasciculus. So in the midbrain, it is located in the tegmentum anterolateral to the periequilateral gray matter. Then in the pons and in the upper half of the medulla oblongata, there is no central canal. So in the pons and upper open part of the medulla oblongata, the medial longitudinal fasciculus lies in the floor of the fourth ventricle. And you know the floor of the fourth ventricle above is it is formed by the posterior surface of the pons and below by the open part of the upper portion of the medulla oblongata. Then you know the lower part of the medulla oblongata is traversed by central canal, which continue as the central canal of the spinal cord. Now with the help of a diagram, I will try to explain. I will draw a brainstem, that is midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, and below that will be the spinal cord. Now this is a longitudinal section through the brainstem. And below the brainstem is continued as the spinal cord. This is the brainstem. And below the brainstem, this is spinal cord. This is a midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, and this is spinal cord. These two masses indicate superior caliculi. Now this longitudinal section through the midbrain. In the center is the aqueduct section, longitudinal section through the cerebral aqueduct, traversing the midbrain. And you know the cerebral aqueduct is surrounded by a layer of gray matter. This is known as the periaqueductal gray matter or central gray matter. Central gray matter surrounding the periaqueductal gray matter. Then pons, upper part of the medulla oblongata, there is no any canal, but the close part or lower part of the medulla oblongata again encloses central canal. So this is central canal of the medulla oblongata, which is continued as central canal of the spinal cord. Now the medial longitudinal fasciculus or bundle, compact bundle of nerve fibers on each side of the middle line. Suppose these are the fibers of medial longitudinal bundle. Parallel to the midline. Comprising of ascending fibers, descending fibers, and intersegmental fibers on each side of the midline, traversing the brainstem. It is midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Now this is spinal cord, and I will cut the section of spinal cord in this region. Section through spinal cord. Now the central canal of medulla oblongata continue as central canal of the spinal cord. Central canal of spinal cord. And you know spinal cord comprise of gray matter inside and white matter inside. So this is the gray matter of spinal cord, divided into anterior horn and posterior horn. This is the anterior horn of the spinal cord. This is posterior horn on each side. And this is the central part of the gray matter through which central canal of the spinal cord traverses. So in spinal cord, the gray matter is inside, white matter is outside, and white matter is in the form of funiculi, anterior, lateral, and posterior funiculus in each half. Now, the medial longitudinal fasciculus continue downward through the cervical part of the spinal cord, and their fibers terminate in the anterior horn neurons, neurons of the anterior horn of the spinal cord on each side. The medial longitudinal bundle or fasciculus continue into the cervical part of the spinal cord. Now, the continuation of medial longitudinal fasciculus in the spinal cord is known as this is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, which continue into the spinal cord as anterior intersegmental tract, also known as fasciculus proprius. Continuation of the medial longitudinal fasciculus into the cervical part of the spinal cord has a special name known as the anterior intersegmental tract of spinal cord, and also known as the fasciculus. Fasciculus proprius. Now, in the upper part, the fibers of the medial longitudinal bundle, they cross the fibers of the medial longitudinal bundle of each side. They cross passing through the posterior commissure. This is supposed posterior commissure. This is suppose posterior commissure. What is posterior commissure? You are familiar with that because we have run this diagram repeatedly. This is frontal pole of cerebrum. This is occipital or posterior pole. When we separate the right and left cerebral hemisphere, this will be the cut end of the corpus callosum. You know, there is fornix, then septum pellucidum. Anteriorly, here is anterior commissure. You know the types of fibers: commissural, projection and association fibers. Commissure fibers interconnect the various structures of right and left cerebellum and sapere. So a bundle of commissure fibers called anterior commissure. Below that is the lamina terminalis, and on the inferior surface is the optic chiasma. Then you know the tuber cinereum, infundibulum, and pituitary gland. Right and left mammillary bodies. A section through the midbrain. Traversed by cerebral aqueduct. This is the anterior wall of the third ventricle, and here is the posterior wall. You know the epipinal recess, pineal recess, stalk of the pineal body, and lower part of the posterior wall of the midbrain. So here in the lower part of the posterior wall of the midbrain, again there is a posterior wall of the third ventricle. There is another commissure known as the posterior commissure. And it is through this commissure the right and left medial longitudinal bundle they cross. And here in the upper part of the fibers of medial longitudinal bundle, dorsolateral to the upper end of the aqueduct and oculomotor non-nucleus, embedded in the fibers of medial longitudinal bundle, there is a nucleus on each side. This is known as the interstitial nucleus. Nucleus of medial longitudinal fasciculus. Interstitial nucleus of MLF, medial longitudinal fasciculus. Also known as the interstitial nucleus of Cajal. So in this way, interstitial nucleus of MLF or Cajal, they are interconnected by fibers which pass through the posterior commissure. You know, this is a superior cariculi. This is a nucleus of superior cariculus. Nucleus of superior colliculus on each side. Its fibers also pass through the posterior commissure and interconnect the superior cariculi with one another. So in this way you can see the posterior commissure is a bundle of commissure fibers in lower part of the posterior wall of the third ventricle. Through it, the interstitial nuclei of Cajal and the nuclei of superior cariculi, they interconnect. Now, the fibers of the medial longitudinal bundle, which in the cervical part of the spinal cord are continued as the fasciculus proprius, also known as the anterior intersegmental tract of the spinal cord, comprising of ascending and descending and intersegmental tracts. These ascending and descending fibers of the medial longitudinal fasciculus, they are connected to motor nuclei of medial longitudinal fasciculus, connect the motor nuclei of 3rd to 12th cranial nerves. From 3rd to 12th cranial nerves, the motor nuclei of 3rd to 12th cranial nerves, they are interconnected via medial longitudinal fasciculus. Now the emerging fibers of these motor nuclei of cranial nerves from 3rd to 12th, they use medial longitudinal fasciculus as pathway for the passage of fibers from one nucleus to another nucleus, and are located in the brainstem and also with the anterior halls of the cervical part of the spinal cord. And second, with anterior horns of cervical spinal cord. Thus interconnect not only the cranial nerves with one another, but also with the anterior horn of the spinal cord, cervical region. Now this interconnection between the cranial motor nuclei of the cranial nerve from 3rd to 12th and the anterior horn of the spinal cord is aimed to synchronized and coordinated movements of the eyes, face, tongue, head, and neck. This interconnection synchronize and coordinate the muscles of eyes, muscles of face, that is muscles of facial expression, muscles of facial expression, muscles of mastications, coordinate, synchronize and coordinate the movements of eyes, face, tongue, lips, head and neck of the body. Now, example of this. For example, when you want to speak to somebody or your friend want to speak with you, so during speech, what you do? You turn your eyeballs toward the friend, you turn your head and neck towards your friend, you move your lips, you move your tongue to speak, and along with this you give facial expression of happiness or sorrow, or anger, etc. So during speech with a friend, while speaking, what you do, you move your eyeballs, you move your head and neck, you move your lips, your tongue, and you show facial expression. The movements of all these parts of the body should be coordinated and synchronized. So you move your eyes using what? Ocular muscle. And what is the nerve supply of ocular muscle? Extraocular muscle, oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve. Abducens nerve. Then you move your head and neck using neck muscle, specially supplied by the accessory nerve, neck muscles, specially innervated by accessory nerve. You move your lips using lip muscle, face muscle. And you know face muscle are supplied by facial nerve. Then you move your tongue and tongue muscles are innervated by hypoglossal nerve. Cranial nerve. Then use other muscles of facial expression, giving facial expression of happiness, sorrow, anger, etc. While talking with your friend, various facial expressions, and you know all the muscles of facial expression are innervated by facial nerve. Oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, abducens nerve, motor nuclei of these nerves. The neck muscle nerve supplies especially the accessory nerve, face muscle, lips, facial nerve, tongue muscle, hypoglossal nerve, and muscles of facial expression by facial nerve. Now, while talking, you give various expression. Now, for example, this is the expression of happiness. This is the expression of sadness or anger. wrinkles, etc. So all these motor activities, they are integrated, interconnected, and synchronized movements occur. Now, these motor nuclei, their emerging fibers are joining the medial longitudinal fasciculus. So, for example, this is upper part of the upper half of the midbrain. So here in the central gray matter is a oculomotor nerve nucleus on each side. And below, in the lower half of the midbrain, in the central gray matter, is the trochlear nerve nucleus. Oculomotor nerve nucleus. This is trochlear nerve nucleus. Their emerging fibers, they join the medial longitudinal fasciculus on each side. Then in the pons, under the facial calculus, this is abductor nerve nucleus, then facial nerve nucleus, abductor nerve nucleus, facial nerve nucleus in the pons, and their emerging fibers join the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Suppose this is right side and this is left side. On each side you can see these nuclei contributing their fibers to the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Then here, this is pons medulla oblongata at the pontomedullary junction, vestibular nuclei, superior, inferior vestibular nuclei, lateral and medial vestibular nuclei. These also contribute fibers to the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Vestibular nuclei. Then in the medulla oblongata, hypoglossal nerve nucleus on each side. 12th cranial nerve nucleus. Contribute their fibers to the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Then accessory nerve nucleus, cranial part, spinal part of the accessory nucleus also contribute fibers which supplies some of the major neck muscles of the body. Accessory nerve nucleus. So all these nuclei, motor nuclei, they are interconnected with the medial longitudinal fasciculus of corresponding side. So this was the structure of the medial longitudinal fasciculus or bundle, and briefly its functions. So while performing these movements, coordination is necessary. And I will give an example of movements during speaking. So head, neck, eyeball, face, lips, tongue, all these muscles coordinate. Now, you may have seen that during lectures, some major and minor mistakes are done. Mistakes in the words, mistakes in the spellings. I try my best to rectify the major mistakes, but the minor mistakes, they are left. Why it is normal? Why? Because while talking or while delivering a lecture, the mind is not focused sometimes. The mind, the muscles of the lips, muscles of the tongue, muscles of the fingers, they do not coordinate. They are not focused. Mind is not focused on that topic. It is diverted. So because of this, mistakes occur in the words, mistakes occur in the spelling. So you have seen when there is no coordination between all these activity, disturbance will occur. This was another example which I showed you. So this was the medial longitudinal fasciculus. What is the next important structure in the midbrain is the trochlear nerve nucleus. Trochlear nerve nucleus. It is located in the lower part of the midbrain, at the level of inferior calculus, in the central gray matter, lateral to the cerebral aqueduct. This is trochlear nerve nucleus. Now, the fibers of trochlear nerve nucleus, they run backwards instead of forward. All the cranial nerve nuclei, they run forwards or anterolaterally and attach to the anterior aspect or anterolateral aspect of the brain. The trochlear nerve is the only cranial nerve which, instead of running forward within the midbrain, it runs backwards. So right and left trochlear nerve run backwards. Then between just above the level of superior cariculi, above the level of inferior cariculi, in the superior medullary velum, the right and left trochlear nerves, they cross. The trochlear nerve, instead of running forward, they are backwards, and in the superior medullary velum they cross each other. So this is an unusual course of the trochlear nerve through the midbrain. Why it is so? It is believed that the nerve was originally supplied by pineal body. I told you the pineal body is attached to the posterior wall of the third ventricle, posteriorly by its stalk. So because pineal body is located posteriorly, and it was thought that originally the trochlear nerve supplied the pineal body. This is why the trochlear nerve intracerebral course through the midbrain is posteriorly, not anteriorly, just like we discussed in the oculomotor nerve. For example, here is oculomotor nerve nuclei, and their fibers run forward instead of backwards. At the level of superior calculus. So the trochlear nerve, it supplies superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. Next is the mesencephalic nucleus and tract of trigeminal nerve. Mesencephalic nucleus and sensory tract of trigeminal nerve. To the next topic we are discussing. The mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal along with sensory tract, I told you, is an elongated tract, elongated sensory nucleus passing through the midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, and upper 2 or 3 segment of the spinal cord. So because we are now dealing with the midbrain, so the mesencephalic nucleus and tract of the trigeminal nerve, it lies in the central gray matter, lateral to the cerebral aqueduct. This is cerebral aqueduct, central gray matter, and here in the central gray matter lateral to the cerebral aqueduct is the mesencephalic nucleus and tract of the trigeminal nerve. Now what is this nucleus? It is sensory nucleus. You know, motor nerve is sensory and motor. For the motor fibers there is a motor nucleus in the pons, and sensory nucleus is elongated nucleus. And this nucleus comprises of unipolar neurons. Neurons. Now this nucleus receives impulses from muscles of facial expression, eyelids, muscles of facial expression, muscles of the eyelids, muscles of mastication, chewing, muscles of mastication. These nucleus receive sensation from these muscles and are responsible for the sensory modalities. This nucleus is responsible for sensory modalities. Responsible for sensory modalities of conscious proprioception, of conscious proprioception, that is sensations from the joints, ligaments, tendons, muscles, etc. For discriminative touch, touch and vibration sensation. Now for this there is a mnemonic which will help you to remember. That is PTV, Pakistan Television, PTV. No, P for conscious proprioception. P for proprioception, for conscious proprioception. T for discriminative touch. T for touch, and V for vibration. So this will help you to remember. So this was about mesencephalic nucleus and sensory tract of trigeminal. Next very important part of the midbrain is the red nucleus. The nucleus rubro. Nucleus rubra. You know, rubra stand for red, nigra stand for black, albus stand for white, luteal stand for yellow, etc. Greek words. Now red nucleus, where it is located. For example, if this is a section of midbrain at the level of superior calculus is oculomotor non-nuclei. This is superior calculus, substantia nigra. And on each side here, posterior to the middle part of the substantia nigra, is a right and left red nuclei. These are the oculomotor non-nuclei. Now these nuclei appear reddish or pinkish or reddish in color. Why it is so? It is because of its high vascularity and presence of iron pigment. In fresh state, these nuclei appear reddish in color or pinkish in color. Now outside each red nucleus, it is covered by, surrounded by nerve fibers, form a sort of capsule around the red nucleus. Each red nucleus is, number one, surrounded by nerve fibers, forming a sort of capsule, nervous capsule, not connective tissue around it. And second, also its medial part is traversed by fibers of oculomotor nerve. Oculomotor nerve fibers, from the oculomotor nuclei, oculomotor nerve fibers arise, run forwards and medially, and traverses through the medial part of the red nucleus to emerge from the medial surface of crus cerebri. This is suppose right oculomotor nerve, and this is left oculomotor nerve. Oculomotor nerve fibers traversing through the red nuclei. Now, what is the function of this? It belongs to extrapyramidal system. Part of the extrapyramidal system. You know, we have motor system, two types. One is especially the pyramidal tracts, and the other one is this extrapyramidal system. So red nucleus is considered as a part of the extrapyramidal system. Now red nucleus, it is responsible for involuntary, it involuntarily maintain posture and muscle tone. Involuntarily maintain posture and muscle tone. Maintain muscle tone and also posture of the body. Now to remember these two major functions of the red nucleus, again there is a mnemonic which will help you. That is ready for PT. For PT. PT stands for physical training. You may remember your school days when, according to the daily schedule timetable, there was a PT period. And there was a teacher for it, PT teacher. And during that period, the PT teacher trained the students performing different exercises and various games, football, volleyball, cricket, etc. So this PT means that physical training. So ready for PT. R for a red nucleus, ready. R for red nucleus. P for posture. T, it is for the tone, muscle tone. So this will help you to some extent to remember some of the functions of the red nucleus which belong to the extrapyramidal system. So this is end of today's lecture. Thank you very much, and keep learning. Thank you.